Hello, everyone. I've been asked to rank the Who's albums worst to best, and I've already done one video, but my computer was faulty at the time and it was making shrill sounds. And also, I hadn't heard the latest album release from The Who. So here goes. I'm sat here on a winter's night with the fire on, and Faith Nyquist's audio on the YouTube channel, my TV, paused, and I just very recently listened to the Who's latest release, possibly the last one, last studio album of new songs, and at the moment I have to put it at the bottom of the list, worst. Um, it sounds a bit mercenary. The music is seemingly very commercial, and there doesn't seem to be much feeling in it, but it has some great moments, though I don't understand the songs, I must admit. um, I've never been a great fan of Pete Townsend. um, he he writes as though he's a restrictive demon rather than a musician or a writer sometimes. Um, and some of the nicer moments seem to be a bit laden with restrictivism. Excuse me. A slight bit of residue from arthritis, perhaps. Need to lose some weight. Anyway, so the thing I can say about this album is, if you forget everything else you've ever heard, the music's quite nice. Right, now on to the good ones. Um, what was last on my list was some people's in these ranking videos, YouTube ranking videos, number one. I can see where they're coming from. Very pleasant album made in the 60s, released in 1967, called The Who Sell Out. And the main reason that I put it at the bottom is that I don't like the mix. It might be my equipment, but the drummer Keith Moon, it can hardly be heard on quite a lot of the tracks. I've heard live renderings of some of them that are a lot better, because there's more drumming on them. So that's the Who Sell Out, and there's some very beautiful music on it. Some nice harmony singing, a bit like the Beach Boys singing, and the Who's own singing, which is similar to Beach Boys, Beatles, etc. And we've got the classic I Can See for Miles on it, which you can hear the drums. That's one of the few tracks that the drums are satisfactory on, in terms of the mix or the balance of sound, whatever. And I like the first track, Armenia City in the Sky, which is not one of the band's compositions, sorry. But it's played very nicely. They were a very good covers band. Quite a lot of their contemporaries were good covers band. These British pop or rock musicians in the early 60s and the mid 60s, and even further in history, did very good cover versions of American artists. Cliff Richard and the Shadows in the 50s, of course, and after that did great cover versions, them being very enlightened musicians and so on. And then, of course, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Animals and the Manfred Mann, that is, all did great cover versions as well as their own material. And the Who are no exception. They also did great cover versions. And Harmony, A City in the Skies is a really good, especially interesting, the guitar. And the drums, not the usual Keith Moon style, nicely laid back. I mean, they're not Earl Palmer, but they are they're very good. So some great songs on it, like Mary Ann with a Shaky Hand, written by Pete Townshend. Some great guitar work. The bass guitar is a little bit subdued, I think. Not this album. It happened a lot in the 60s. Not only with this band, but other bands. The bass guitar tended to suffer because the trend was at the time to have the treble very breezy and bright, and the song audible. The song was the main thing, which is either a good or a bad thing depending on your own personal preferences in music. And I have to say first or after that it's worth getting a compilation album of The Who so you can get all the singles, because the main manifestation of rock and roll in Britain at the time was the single, the 45 RPM single, and its potential for success, or its success commercially in the charts. I fancy that was how the money came rolling in anyway. But as always with rock music and rock and roll music, the main experience of the band would have been in live performance. So that's I've got the most recent one, Who, as the bottom of the list. There's some enjoyable harmony and timbres and musical sounds on it. That one. So it doesn't have the insistent energy that used to be their forte. But anyway, so the bottom of the list was Who. The next one up is The Who Sell Out. And after that, we go into slightly better territory with a late 70s album called Who Are You? Which has that energy, has more energy and a better production sound than The Who Sell Out. The songwriting is good. There's some reflections on music in it. Problem with Pete Townshend is in the latter part of his career became a bit insular in his in the subject matter of his songs, at least in the band he did. His solo records are a different kettle of fish altogether. But the performances are good. Roger Daltrey is particularly good on vocals on it. I'm not over keen on the title track, but it has some great moments. There's a great riff, and the song's quite comical, really. But again, there's this devilish sort of life in it. People punching each other and falling off stools and things like that. So, Who Are You one's next up. what else can I say about it? Oh, there's a great song written by John Entwistle called Trick of the Light. Great heavy song with the story of this union of two souls, I suppose, in what some would regard as a sordid situation, but wrongly so. And there's a very popular one with the fans called Sister Disco. Some great chordal strum guitar work on that, which is one of Peter Townshend's trademarks, I suppose. One of the best features, his strums are very even, usually, and his chord work is great. I mean, it's not the Shadows, but at least it's himself. Now, a word about the bass player. As time went on record, he seemed to get better and better on the bass, certainly more and more busy. But this I think this had to do with the strictures of recording studios and making records and so on. But if you get any live recording of the band, and you'll hear rightly one of the most popular bassists has been in popular rock and roll. Right, the next one up is Face Dances, which has not got the drummer Keith Moon on it because he just died, and he was replaced by Kenny Jones, who was a very good drummer. Some critics and reviewers have said that he wasn't the right drummer for the band, but I think it doesn't matter about that sort of consideration. He was a great drummer, and he was quite different from Keith Moon. That's probably something which people don't like about him, but he didn't have the uniqueness that Keith Moon had. But as I say, he still had his own style, and he sounded great. But anyway, Face Dances, much better recording sound, great rock sound, better songs, I think, than the Who Are You album, which also musically tended to sound a bit noodly, a bit like some critical views of prog rock, that it's noodly, because this is just disrespecting the musicians and their expression and their work in their music, calling it noodling. But Who Are You just sound a little bit noodly throughout. But anyway, next one up, Face Dances, as I just said. Face Dances, great rock sound, a bit like the first Who single, Can't Explain. Great guitar, rock guitar sound. Those upfront, spotlighted chordal riffs and improvisations, which have inspired so many bands since then. I'm thinking of people like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and some of the punk rock artists. And anyway, so Face Dances, they're all worth a listen. These from the Who Sell Out upwards. I'm not sure about the most recent one. Some of the songs are good, and some of them I don't like. Anyway, Face Dances, well worth a listen. Great songs. One of them particularly good, one with the bagpipes in it. What's it called? It was where Roger Daltrey sings, "I was walking down Holland Park Road." How Can You Do It Alone, it's called. But of course, as is quite often, this songwriter is describing a restricted devil, or restrictivist devil. And So anyway, the next one up is Endless Wire, which was released in 2012. Only 2 members of the original band left, and they assembled some great musicians, some good musicians, great musicians, to play on the songs, and there's some really good songs on it. 2,000 Years, not so restrictivist as some of the Who albums. 2,000 Years, Breathing Out and Breathing In, and there's a mini opera on it. It's a kind of progressive move, I suppose, which I don't understand the meaning of, and I haven't done too much thinking about it. But it's enjoyable for the music, really. And there's a great song in it called Mirador, which Roger Daltrey sings. Who will walk through the Mirador? Will there be music or will there be war? Will we be rich or will we be poor? Who will walk through the Mirador? So that's that one, Endless Wire. Is there another one? The next one is, the next one up is, again, it's a very popular one, and it led to a great movie. A great movie was made of it, of the story of it, including some of the music, as a soundtrack to the movie. And it's quite a lot of people's #1 album, because the performances, I think, because the performances are so great. It's called Quadrophenia. That was released in 1973. And the main criticism I have of that, it has some brilliant songs on it, especially the last one, Love Reign O'er Me, and the criticism I have of it is that there are 2 long instrumentals on it, one near the beginning and one near the end, and they're almost identical. So I mean, I said not long ago to Meher Baba Sahavas that you may as well just, switch the needle of the record player, as was then, because it's much easier now. You may as well just adjust the CD player, or move the little marker along the YouTube video, or whatever, to the first iteration of the instrumental, and listen to it again, which leads to the last song, because the differences are only subtle, whereas the rest of the album is not subtle at all. The bass player is really enjoyable bass playing. So it's great. I think he had a great grounding in jazz. The improvisations are very good, I think. In a much simpler rock way, of course. And what did I say about that? There's another release later which you could listen to as well. Of Quadrophenia, with slightly different mixes, redone performances in some cases, and some songs that didn't appear on the 1973 album, and also some songs by other artists, records by other artists from the 60s on it. That's also a good buy. I'm not sure which is the best one. I think the second release might be a bit better than the 1973, the original album 1973. So, and of course, there's a film of the story, a dark story again, mostly dark story. So then, from Quadrophenia upwards, we're into classic territory, I think. The next one up is the live album from 1970 called Live at Leeds, and it was a single album in that it was just a 40 minutes of music, but the tracks were drawn from shows which were much longer, and since then there have been other releases of Live at Leeds with other songs from the shows of the time on it, and they're worth listening. But the original album, I think, has a particular appeal. It was the one that was released at the time, and it represents, and rightly so, because as I said before, rock music is mainly a live event rather than listening to records. Records should just be a taster for live performances. This represents the Who throughout their career. I think their music throughout the career is kind of explosive. Now, it starts with the first track, Mose Ellison's Young Man Blues, which is kind of honky-tonk, not honky-tonk, but close to being honky-tonk, jazz piano song. And they've made it into, the Who made it into a powerful rock number. It's arranged a bit like Elvis's Heartbreak Hotel, but with that electric, stabbing, thunderous sound that the Who were so good at, with Keith Moon's drumming and the powerful but ever improvising Johnny Muscle's bass. But Pete Townshend's delivery on this is superb, and in his own style. I mean, I think the main attraction for many people, the main attraction of the Who was the style of the band, the way they played. Roger Daltrey was great as well. It's followed by a more electric version of their own Substitute, more energetic performance of it than the single. And, the electric guitar. And he was one of the best electric guitarists so far, and a very influential one. That's Substitute, and then there's a couple of songs, kind of rock and roll standards, Summertime Blues, Eddie Cochran's Summertime Blues, and Johnny Kidd's Shaking All Over, done in a very heavy rock sort of way, and it's just the Who doing what they do best in the best environment they had, which was on stage. And then there's a long number which starts off with My Generation. The whole number's entitled My Generation, which could easily, it's a sort of song one could easily make into a jam at the end, and it has what Pete Townshend described as a jam in a newspaper article, but I'm not sure you're referring to this particular recording. Anyway, it starts off with My Generation, a much more rock version of My Generation than the studio one, and it goes into an excerpt from the rock opera Tommy, which was written mostly by Pete Townshend. I think it was his greatest work, though I may be wrong. But it goes into an excerpt from Tommy, and then there's this extended, mainly instrumental piece, in which what Ian Anderson described as the Beethoven dynamic seems to have been explored, but I think it may have been invented, this Beethoven dynamic, in rock music by Jimmy Page when he was in the Yardbirds, and since, because Led Zeppelin did similar music to this. Anyway, it has quiet passages followed by very loud explosions of music, and soft passages followed by very loud, hard rock improvisations. The whole improvised suite, or just one number, is particularly good. And then that's followed, the last track on it, by a rendering of Magic Bus, one of their singles, again in a more electric way and with this dynamic, Beethoven dynamic, I suppose. And so that's the album. And for me, we're now in great territory with this band, which I find a bit problematic on the whole. So beginning with Quadrophenia, and then the Live at Leeds album, and then the next one, I've got two albums which I can't rank one above the other. And the first one of them is My Generation, the first Who album, 1965, and the other one is Who's Next, an album called Who's Next from 1971. They're both entirely different albums. You can't always tell that it's the same band when you first hear them. And one nice thing about the Who's career is that they did change tack on occasion, so that it sounded quite different from album to album. And then you listen to the playing and you know who it is. But anyway, the My Generation one, both albums, My Generation and Who's Next, represent the end of one thing and the beginning of another. The first one, My Generation, which is the first Who album, studio release, came at the end of their ascending career as, well, first of all as jazz musicians, and then rock and roll, but beginning to find their own expression or their own style, which has remained inimitable, really, ever since. So first of all the Detours, and then the High Numbers, and then they changed the name to the Who, and I think there was some jiggery-pokery about changing from one name to another to start with, but it must have settled on the Who at some point, and they did this album, My Generation, as one of the most famous songs, the title track, their most famous songs on it. And the American release of this album was called The Who Sings My Generation, and you can hear why, because the singing is particularly good. The harmonising and lead vocals are all particularly good, and there's some classic songs on it, because in his early days, Pete Townshend, although he sounds very imperfect, he could write an interesting song. So we have this Rickenbacker sound, a well exploited instrument. Whether it was a real Rickenbacker or not, I don't know, but it sounds like one. 12-string Rickenbacker. There may be another guitars on it, I don't know. There's good strong bass playing, and of course there's this new drummer who was wowing everyone called Keith Moon. So they made their name, or they made their style popular. I don't think they would have appreciated the style much in America, because it's very difficult. It's not really like American rock and roll as such. It's kind of like an Andy Warhol nightmare of rock and roll. But the next one, the other one rather, is the Who's Next album, which is thought of as their most popular, most successful album. It was a UK #1 in the charts, in the album charts. and it has a great production sound, the great performance of all the bands, and what we call radio staple songs on it. Baba O'Reilly, Behind Blue Eyes, Won't Get Fooled Again. The other ones have, I think, become also radio staples like Bargain and Getting in Tune as well. But they're interesting songs. There seems to be some kind of struggle going on in quite a lot of the songwriting. The songwriter seems to be struggling with emotion some of the time. There's a beautiful song called Song Is Over, in which Townsend's spiritual themes, as he calls them, get expressed. But they're very simple spiritual themes, and also quite powerful. And it's interesting about Pete Townsend's spiritual themes. He seems to be, from many of his songs, a very unspiritual sort of person, but I think he visited India to meet followers of Merwan, or Meher Baba, as he's often known as. And he became quite enamoured of him. Did an entire album, 2 albums, as I understand it. I've heard them in the past. Sort of dedicated to him, and the photos of him on them. So, but this was a man who kind of presented himself in a way as a demon. But that's another story. So let's go on to the next one up. The Who's Next. Let's start with the Who's Next album. It did start a kind of 70s heaviness in the release records. They were pretty much the same throughout their career as a live band. Thank God. One would say thank God about that. They started this kind of heaviness that continued into Quadrophenia and became more liberally integrated into a general musical style later. So, right, we won't go on any further with that. Excuse me. Smoker's cough. Now, the next one up is one that a lot of people don't like. They've put it near the bottom of the pile, and it's another one with Kenny Jones on it, because it was after the death of Keith Moon. And it's called It's Hard. And there's some wonderful songs on this. It's very colourful, accomplished. It has the energy, it has that driving rock force. The writing's particularly good. My least favourite track on it is Eminence Front, which has a line Dressed to Kill in it. I would have thought it would be better called Dressed to Kill, and that's a very common lyrical refrain. Dressed to Kill has a double-edged meaning. He's someone who's really dapper and attractive to the opposite sex, or someone who's getting ready to harm someone. So, which song do you like best? Oh yes, there's a couple of songs on the second half of it, or the B-side of the LP, vinyl LP. And one of them is called When a Man is a Man. That was a good one. And Another one. What's that one called? I don't know. Why Did I Fall for That? That's quite a good one. But I think Roger Daltrey makes this album with his singing and his timbres and his slightly. He has the power to adjust his voice to different songs for different lyrics and so on and so forth. Right, that's that one. Now the next one is one that I think is a really, really great album. It's called A Quick One. It's the second Who album. It has the energy of the first album. It has the musical diversity of the Who Sellout. And it has the first, well, very early rock opera or pop opera called A Quick One While He's Away. So I guess it's a title track. And I'll do with a drink actually. Excuse me. Just pause this for a minute. I'm back. So A Quick One. Great pop rock album, energy, style of the Who. Great melodies, songs, interesting songs, nice variety of differing songs. Not too much introspection or self-indulgence or self-willedness, I suppose. No, that's not right. Anyway, there's even a funny jazz number on it called Cobwebs and Strange. And there's this beautiful mini opera. So next two are the top two for me. They're fairly interchangeable, really. But I've had to put a number one, the big one. So the second one down, and it doesn't rank highly on most reviewers' videos, ranking videos, and it's called The Who by Numbers. And has an interesting cover, which was written by, cover art, which was drawn by the bass guitar of Cartoon, Who, 4 members, and you have to join the dots up part of it. But I don't know anyone who's actually drawn in it. Did I draw on mine when I had the vinyl? I don't think I did. Seems like too much of a defacement or a vandalization. So, Who by Numbers. Great number called Slip Kid on it. None of the best ones they ever did. Squeezebox is quite good. That was a hit single from it. And the performances are just great. And the second half of it has some wonderful writing on it. Success story. Some humour in that, which was written by John Entwistle. And then a run of songs which I found one of the best examples of the Who at their best, and starting off with Blue, Red and Grey, which was just Peter Townsend singing with his ukulele about dancing at night in joyousness, and then How Many Friends Have I Really Got? Or is it They're All in Love? They're All in Love is a beautiful love song, which is in waltz time. And then either How Many Friends Have I Really Got, or the other way around in track listing. I forget which which I think it might vary from release to release. The order of tracks. And then the final number, which is called In a Hand or a Face, which is quite a funny number about reincarnation, where he sings, where Roger Daltrey sings, "Ain't it funny that they're all Cleopatra when you gaze into their past, and when you find out about their birth sign, you realise there was no need to have asked." And it's quite true, I think. But being a spiritualist myself, I find it a rather, I don't know, a restrictive criticism. So not much use. But, and of course, reincarnation is a hope dream of the devil's, really. There's no such thing as reincarnation, in that reincarnation doesn't happen. One becomes one with God, with the infinite love, or the potential for love of God, and as was always, is then eternal, or infinite and eternal, and the entire universe is just one. One becomes the universe, becomes one with the universe, and death just continues the journey, I suppose. Journeys, infinite and multiple possibilities of journeys. But anyway, that's that. But there's some great playing on this, and it's what he thinks. So it's important to listen to people, to what they think, and perhaps try to understand them or try to love them. Now, and try to guide them. So that's that one. Number 2 on my list. But number 1, I have to have the rock opera Tommy. It's a strange story, full of impossible characters, but it's musically very good. The performances are great. The criticism I've got of it is that there isn't enough Roger Daltrey on it, but Pete Townshend does some good singing jobs, especially on the Acid Queen song. And the others all do little singing jobs, but I think it would have been better with more Roger Daltrey singing. But apart from that, it's one of those perfect albums, and I think perhaps The Who's greatest achievement is to make these rock operas fairly early in their career. And if it wasn't for those, perhaps maybe there would have been a whole run of Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals and Stephen Sondheim musicals and so on that would have been totally different, or maybe not as successful. I don't know. And so the sound of this album, it's almost skiffle-like in parts, which is great because I love Lonnie Donegan's records from the early 60s, I think, maybe even earlier than that. Apart from the drummer, of course, Keith Moon is always his own self. But the guitars and the music generally tends to fasten itself into the very roots of rock and roll, or even the roots of popular music. Displaying that someone, and I think it's probably more than one of them, particularly Roger Daltrey and Peter Townsend, that it displays that they have a good sound musical knowledge and knowledge of their genre and of show business. But the simplicity of this album, it belies the opinion that some people have that it's a progressive rock album. It's more a progressive rock and roll album, and the rock opera as such, was in live performance. And if you listen to the Who's live renderings of these, they're much more of a rock performance in the newer sense of the word rock. As for the Who being a progressive band, Elvis said that they were, so I suppose they are, but they weren't a prog rock band as such. But they did do progressive music. Now, that's for the first side of it. The first half of it was a double LP, which means about 80 minutes of music, and the second half of it is the second disc. Is less simple, I think. It's more musically, much more an explanation of music on it, and much brighter melodically. But then this has to do with the character who was suffering from or experiencing some form of withdrawal, having seen a murder, being cured of it, and spiritual themes, spiritual awakening, in this case of the deaf, dumb and blind boy. And I looked on the vinyl sleeve. I had the vinyl a long time ago, and it actually says at the end of the credits, it says the different people involved in making the album, and then it says Avatar Meher Baba at the end, and of course Peter Townsend had recently been enamoured of central India, whether by travelling there or by meeting people who'd been there in this country, I don't know. So anyway, we've got spiritual awakening in the metaphor of an autistic or otherwise troubled, vulnerable child being cured, and also the gathering of others who are either spiritually awakened or about to be so, into the company of the one who has been spiritually awakened. Oh, there we have it, Tommy. That also was gave rise to a film by Ken Russell, in which the music was entirely rewritten and added to, partly to fill out the length of the opera, but also some good writing involved there. And Ann-Margret was in the film, beautiful Ann-Margret, who most famously danced with Elvis on his films and sang with him in a truck as they went along singing, which was it? I Slipped, I Stumbled, I Fall. And now she's in one of the Who's films, or the Who film, or Ken Russell's film. It's an extremely surreal, eccentric sort of film of Tommy. But I don't think the music's as good as the original album or the live performances by the band. But some people might like it more, so it's worth a listen to that soundtrack, or to see the film, obviously. Excuse me while I have a drink of water. Right, is that enough said? Tell me their most popular work. Got a great band, a great style, very much their own, influential. Okay, what more can I say? Nothing. Right. Okay, well, quite a long video, and just like to say God bless you all, and hope you watch some other videos of mine. Have a look, see if you find any of them have interesting titles. So here goes. So I've ranked the Who's albums. Have I missed any out? Did I miss any out? I don't think I missed any out. Anyway, I think I've got all the regular releases. Here goes. Switching off. Bye-bye.